But we got sticks for real. We looking out for the opposition, we don't do this for mass appeal. Don't make me blast it still. I put in work, no Vladimir. They want me to lose, but I can't. Mama shed like 1,000 tears. I can't do that shit to waste. I pull up in Mercedes. Next year you gon' see me pull up in the race. All I do ball hard. Mama told me, boy, make sure you tie up your legs. Hey, when I was down bad, boy, I got on my knees and I started to pray. Now I'm breaking bread with my young vet. Where's you was a part of the gang? No, now he getting paid every single day. Yeah, I was hustling. I could turn an 8 to a 28. Let me show you. 12, they can kiss my ass. Yeah, see them lights, but you know I got the strap. Go right up, now he getting paid every single day. Yeah, I was hustling. I could turn
the greatest on the grid. And here they come, the 5 red lights for the Italian Grand Prix. And they're over a very long time, but it's lights out. And away we go for the Italian Grand Prix of 2022. Max Verstappen looks to have got a great start. Aiden Jackson, look at Charles Leclerc, we're going to go 3 wide into the first chicane. We had 4 wide a few seasons ago, and Charles got off. And he locked up. Here's the start from Jackson. Now, was he kind of not at fault, but part of this? Well, he does. It is the slightest of contacts on the rear wheel there of Charles Leclerc. I wonder if that had something to do with it. Will Mick Hakkinen move into second? Yes, he will. Mick Hakkinen is going for second then in this race, and it looks like he's going to get ahead of Alonso. And Mick Hakkinen, well, if Aiden Jackson did let him through, it was an inspired decision by him to do so. This is a move he did on Perez, so the Audis would have moved the field as well. And now he's going to do the same to Fernando Alonso as well in the same corner.
Aiden, it's Chris. In order, all this off. There's nothing to get ahead. Checo and Leclerc attacking. All this off.
Oh, a word from the top. We don't really hear Chris Weidman so often.
Aiden's race is critical. We are on fumes, mate. We should cross the line, but you're probably going to lose a couple of positions, but we are fuel critical, mate. Oh,
Jackson has just about made it.
Oh, out of fuel, I guess. Well, that's a first.
Well, good evening. To be honest, it doesn't sound as strange as it did in 2008 when the sport broke new ground with the first ever night race, as the notoriety, you could be fair, has worn off a little bit since now we have 3 of them a year alongside the Bahrain and Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, but this is still the most picturesque and toughest of the season, arguably. Welcome back to the Singapore Grand Prix after a couple years absence due to the pandemic, and you may have noticed we've been on standby for almost an hour after a heavy rainfall earlier, but thankfully it's dissipated, and now we're gearing up for the most physically demanding race of the year. Even with the rainfall, the humidity is still extremely high, which Aiden Jackson has demonstrated, wouldn't you say, Aaron? Oh yeah, absolutely chaos. It was a real scare for the Audi team, as after qualifying, Aiden looked completely exhausted to the point where he almost fainted and had to go for a medical checkup, thus missing the post-session interviews after putting his car second on the grid for today's race. The fact is that Aiden has actually been struggling all weekend physically, and Audi are concerned that he won't make the race distance. One thing to bear in mind here is that Aiden has never raced here before, compared to almost everybody else on the grid who has multiple years of experience, including, in particular, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and if my memory serves me, Sebastian Vettel, who all took part in the very first race here back in 2008. Aiden was taken for a fitness test this morning and passed. And being the warrior that he is, he put his car in second on the grid behind pole man Charles Leclerc. But the biggest honourable mention actually goes to Mika Hakkinen, who will start 4th today on a track and in time of day conditions that he has never driven in before. While Max Verstappen, who took back the championship lead with his win in Monza, will start 6th. So what's the deal with the 2021 cost cap saga? Well, all teams except one, and there'll be no prizes for guessing who, have all handed in their financial spending paperwork. Aston Martin have been subsequently fined $450,000 for a procedural breach. Audi are in the clear completely, based on this season's spending of course, but Red Bull, no surprises there, are the only team that didn't hand in their documents. Apparently, Christian Horner attended the hand-in personally, which is already a procedural breach in itself. But despite Christian's insistence over the course of the weekend interviews that there was no overspending done, the FIA have announced in the last hour that Red Bull are to enter an ABA, which is an accepted breach agreement, from the conclusion of the race weekend, which seems to suggest a slam dunk against Christian's pleas. As such, Red Bull's part in this entire saga continue to run, as their case will be heard and eventual punishment, if any, will be handed out. Well, controversy does appear to follow Red Bull around a lot, doesn't it? Whether it's driver favoritism or supposed going over the financial regulations, we'll see what the FIA does. Well, the Singapore circuit has gone through numerous changes since 2008, and there are rumours of more for next season with the supposed removal of 4 corners at the Marina Bay Grandstand. Let's go around the current layout on board the first ever winner here, in rather controversial circumstances, Fernando Alonso. A lot has changed for Fernando Alonso in the 17 years since he grabbed his first win here back in 2008. He's kind of back with Renault, which is now as Alpine, and the Singapore circuit at this point has lost the Singapore Sling. It was certainly a landmark of this circuit in its early years. More changes for next year, of course, but under the current layout, here we are at the first DRS zone. And one thing you will notice about Singapore, or one of the 2 things that will be immediately noticeable, is how picturesque it is. Look at this beautiful place. But the other one, which is going to be very taxing for all the drivers, and in particular Aiden Jackson, as we reported earlier, the corners really don't stop coming for the high majority of it. We're only towards the end of the first sector, and we've already gone through about maybe 5 or 10 corners. But as you can see, even with this onboard footage of Alonso, it's corner after corner after corner. This circuit really is a test of endurance that many people have passed. But as we said, with Jackson, he's particularly struggled. With Fernando Alonso, he's been around the block. He's done it all in this place before. He's took part in all but maybe a couple of Grand Prix when he took a couple of years out in the 2017s and 18s and such, and then for a couple of years we weren't here. But we're back now, and just look at the amount of steering input that Alonso is going to have just on this lap. It is daunting, it is tiring, it is the Singapore Grand Prix, one of my favourite circuits on the calendar incidentally, but that's only because I'm commentating it. After a 2-year absence, we're back in Singapore. It is round 17 of this truly enthralling 2022 season, in which the pendulum has gone back and forth. It's the toughest race of the year, a test of endurance. Who will pass and take the checkered flag home? Commentary from this year's Singapore Grand Prix, of course, is from Aaron Henwood, who's probably more thankful to be in the box than driving. Thank you, Chaos. Absolutely, yes. It is, as he said, the most difficult and energy-sapping race of the season. And this is probably even more so than Malaysian Grand Prix. Well, it almost had a casualty. when Aiden Jackson, who has been struggling to run all weekend long, having to take extended breaks after his runs in the practice session and being near exhausted at the end of qualifying, and he had to go for a medical checkup, as we said earlier, as it was reported he almost fainted. He's on the grid, the hero that he is, but I think every expectation is that we might have at least one retirement at the end of this. But Aiden Jackson's a warrior, and I think if he's in a position to win, he's going to soldier on. Well, the Singapore Grand Prix, as I've stated before, one of my absolute favourites, and this will be the last time we run round 23 corners because, of course, next year we're going to lose 4, with 4 corners being taken out at the Marina Bay Grandstand. That's going to be quite a loss, but it might make just getting round here very much easier. But even with the removal of those corner after corner, you can really understand why Aiden Jackson in particular has been energy sapped. Let's have a look at the grid. Lance Stroll and Daniel Ricciardo will be on the back row today as the grid penalties are back. Mick Schumacher also took one, as did Nicholas Latifi, and they'll start 20th and 19th. The penalty buck continues with Sebastian Vettel and Yuki Tsunoda. Sebastian Vettel, most wins round here of all time so far. Alonso and Ocon continue the penalty buck, as does Lando Norris and Sergio Perez, 2 cars out of position due to the grid penalty plethora. I think it all stops around the top 10. Guan Yu Zhou is 12th alongside Alex Albon from a season best 11th. Ken Madison 10th alongside Pierre Gasly. Valtteri Bottas doing very well for Alfa Romeo this weekend, and he's alongside George Russell on row 4. Row 3 is the Titanic Championship battles of 2021. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton looking to renew acquaintances, no doubt. Mika Hakkinen, a sensational P4 alongside Carlos Sainz in a whole new environment for him. Aiden Jackson and Charles Leclerc are on the front row. But how much of a challenge is Aiden Jackson going to be able to put up will be the question. As we've said, a very exhausted man after one run in practice, having to take kind of an extended break. He got very little running in the practice, and it's because after one kind of maybe 5 or 10 lap run, he's kind of spent. This is obviously a situation that Aiden has never been in before, having never raced at Singapore. Of course, in F2 we don't go here at all, and in 2021 it was off the calendar due to the altered calendar for the pandemic reasons in 2021. So it is a welcome return. This is a beautiful, beautiful place, but this circuit is tough. Probably in Malaysia, it's really just the heat and humidity that's the biggest issue for the drivers to face in terms of absolute fitness. Here today, it's not just the humidity, even in these wet conditions, and that just adds an extra element to it, but it's the corner and the G-forces as well. Every corner is literally 1 second, mostly, after another. It is constant corners, with a couple of straights to break things up. Coming up to one now. We'll get another straight in 2023 with the removal of the Marina Bay Stadium corners, which will bring the kind of corner number down to, I believe it's 19. We're also going to have a lap chalked off in 2023 to make up for that distance. But the Audis racing on in the clear after the cost cap findings found them to be pretty much in the clear as far as the cost cap is concerned, and I think that's very duly well done by Audi, considering the way they came in. It was very early, a lot of years earlier than planned, but they already had the blueprint set in before any money was actually spent, so that obviously helped. And they obviously had a very good car out of the box, and has got even better as the season has gone on. And even Nico Hulkenberg now is able to get some points on the board. There's talk of maybe a late push for third, or maybe even, I don't think second will be in the cards, as Ferrari and Red Bull seem to have those positions chalked up. But now Audi seem to be making a late push for third, and they are the lead cars of the two Audis and the two Mercedes today on the grid before we even started, with Hamilton and Russell a couple of places below where Mika Hakkinen is in 4th place. And as we said, a very honourable mention to him, obviously up there in the age bracket a bit, having brought in as a replacement for Hulkenberg in a whole different situation. He's got a sensational 4th. Don't count him out of the race for the win for this one. Here come the 5 red lights. for the most demanding race of the year, the 2022 Singapore Grand Prix. It is lights out, and away we go, go, go. It looks like Aiden Jackson got a great start there. Charles Leclerc immediately cuts across as we go into turn 1. We are starting on the intermediate tyres. Don't forget with the rain. There's Daniel Ricciardo doing vintage. Daniel Ricciardo sent it into turn 1, trying to go 3 wide. He came off unscathed in that one. He's still holding it in through turn 2. Aiden Jackson has taken the lead. He looked like he got a good start off the start line. He certainly did. And Mika Häkkinen made his way up to 3rd as well. So both Audis getting great starts. And for Aiden Jackson, I think this is the best thing he could have right now, because at least he won't have to deal with the turbulent air of other cars, considering how hot and humid it is around here already, even with the rain coming down. That's Alex Albon moving into 10th place. Great move from him. The big loser, Valtteri Bottas. What happened to Bottas at the start? He's dropped down to 11th, battling with Alex Albon. Sergio Perez has gone up to 13th. I don't think he's made a place. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo very out of position in 15th and 18th for McLaren. They've really gone backwards this weekend. This is one of those tracks where you think McLaren would be kind of stellar around here, considering their chassis, which has always been their strongest car asset. But today, they're struggling. And it's the Audis that are doing big numbers today. Charles Leclerc with a perfect position himself, even though he's lost the lead. And all he really needs to do is hang on to Jackson, because even with his heightened fatigue rate, mistakes will creep in, even if he doesn't really want them to. But we'll have to see. Jackson is... Oh! That's Max Verstappen with no front wing. What has happened there? And how is he still in 6th place? Max Verstappen is driving with no front wing. I'm not really sure if that's car damage or a game bug. I'm going to assume it's a game bug because Max is going on, so Max's front wing is completely invisible. But I don't know what's going on there, but I think there might be a slight bug with the game because Max Verstappen is going on, yet he's driving with almost no front wing attached to his car, which would be monumentally difficult even for him. I know this is Max Verstappen and he can make anything work. But there, it might be a bridge too far, but he's going on. Fernando Alonso can't. He's changing a front wing at the end of the first lap, so he had contact somewhere. It was very close in the first corner. We got relatively through unscathed. So let's see this. This is Max Verstappen's start. We're going to see how he lost his front wing. And as you can see at the front, Aiden Jackson already being forced very much to the left. With Charles Leclerc trying to do the Schumacher chop across the track. But Jackson had none of it and took the lead there. And I don't think you can really see on this camera, but the nose is gone. The front wing is not on completely. And it's a game bug, lads. We have a game bug with Max Verstappen driving around with no front wing. That is really bizarre to me how one works, but it's this game for you, I guess. And Aiden Jackson, as you can see, is absolutely having none of it. From Charles Leclerc, staying to the inside and making the move stick there. Mika Häkkinen, oh, he touched Sainz! He touched Sainz, and that probably gave Sainz a bit out of shape, so Mika Häkkinen must have made his way through into 3rd place then. No mellow from him at the race starts then from Mika Häkkinen, and he takes 3rd. So let's see how Jackson his start went, and Charles does immediately cut across. You're out allowed to make the one move, but Jackson had absolutely none of it and sent it into turn 1, probably to trying to give himself as easy a race as possible. A testament to his fortitude and determination this evening, because as we said at the top of the show, Jackson has been really struggling from a physical standpoint. But right now he leads, but Charles Leclerc is breathing all over the rear wing. But if we know Jackson, he's going to valiantly defend as hard as he can. Yes, there's been genuine concern from the Audi wall all weekend long about his... it's not a lack of fitness, let's not get this twisted here. These F1 drivers are supremely fit. Probably some of the fittest racing drivers in the world, you could argue. And Aiden Jackson is certainly amongst them. But as we said, the situation today is very different to anything Aiden Jackson has faced before. All these drivers at one point or another have driven this track at one point. Probably with the exception of Mick Schumacher, actually, who would be another one. Of course we didn't race in 2021. So for Mick Schumacher and for maybe Nicholas Latifi as well, there are another 2 drivers alongside Jackson who have never raced here. So it is definitely going to be a very tough race for them physically and probably even mentally as well. It will really mess with your psyche when you're fatigued, and this one can really harm you in terms of fatigue, and Aiden Jackson has certainly been a victim of it. But much like the soldier he is, he's fighting on, and he's leading this race against pretty much all odds to a degree. But we know how good that Audi car is, has been demonstrated by Mika Häkkinen up into 3rd, as Audi really are starting to look the part as the season goes into the final few races. Audi all of a sudden seem to be making a real push for maybe one more Constructors' Championship position, and maybe 3rd is not completely out of their reach after all, because if they keep having races like this, then they will overhaul Mercedes probably quite quickly, one would think, and that would certainly help them going into 2026, and the amount, a wealth of funds that will come in. Of course, there is talk of a maybe 5 to 10% cut that will go to Connosport to kind of fund their entry in next season, because they are the team that are taking over from Audi. So maybe to help Connosport on their way and kind of say thanks for the technical partnership offer, which really went through as well. So maybe that's another reason for it. But whatever the case, Audi will immediately make that back up, I would have thought. It won't probably do much harm than that much, but I think it would definitely help to have an extra position or 2 in the Constructors' Championship, and it'll rarely make a dent, really. Davidoff Butler being very fair with the supposed cut. He could Audi are really doing it out of themselves, of course. Davidoff proposed it, really, but wasn't going to kind of force it on them if they were struggling, but they're not really, and much to the superb driving of not only Aiden Jackson and Mika Häkkinen now, but of course Nico Hulkenberg as well, who started the season, and now we know that Nico Hulkenberg will be a Haas driver next season. That was confirmed earlier this week. One thing we forgot to kind of mention in the pre-race show that Nico Hulkenberg has been confirmed to be a Haas driver. So 2023 looks pretty much set in stone now, with Mercedes sticking, Red Bull obviously sticking with Verstappen and Perez. Perez has really come good in the second half of the season. So Haas having one change because they're keeping on Kevin Magnussen. No changes, well, there is no changes at Aston Martin. There is, of course, Fernando Alonso going to them to partner up most likely with Lance Stroll as his teammate. Probably no surprises there. At Alpine, of course, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon will be cinema next season, you'd think. As to, the kind of, let's say, not so close a relationship those two have had in the past. Williams will also be making a change, though. Nicholas Latifi was already confirmed to be being replaced by Logan Sargent, who has made a very good waves in F2 at the end of the season, scoring a podium in Italy, of course. McLaren having a change of their own making with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, which probably means that Daniel Ricciardo, well, there is one spot available, and it'll be at AlphaTauri, but I think kind of the agreement is that maybe Daniel Ricciardo will be in that AlphaTauri seat next season, above Liam Lawson, which would be kind of a bit harsh on Lawson, really, given his F2 exploits. He really has come on strong since Spain, but it really, as we've said many times, it's been the consistency of Cali Meyer that won her the championship at Monza. But that does seem to be the one seat that could be open at AlphaTauri, and they are evaluating their options. But I think for kind of experience matters, to give Yuki Tsunoda a valuable teammate of experience, Daniel Ricciardo, you probably couldn't go wrong with him, to be fair. So I would be very much for Daniel Ricciardo being in that second AlphaTauri seat. But apart from that, it all seems set in stone for 2023. The one big change, of course, is the loss of Project Prototype or Audi for now to be replaced by Sport, and Aiden Jackson will lead that team. And if it is to be believed, Devin Butler will be his teammate. And well, Devin Butler's no slouch. Let's not get it twisted here. A lot of people will point to a very similar situation at Aston Martin between Lance Stroll and his father Lawrence owning the Aston Martin brand, or at least having to come in and do that. He is increasing his stage here in the Aston Martin brand, especially on the Formula 1 side. So many people would point to a very similar situation at Sport, with Devin Butler being the son of Davidoff, of course, who is going to be one of Sport's main contributor, Butler Global, for 2023. But it's not just that, it really gives Butler Global a chance on the World Formula 1 stage, even without Devin. But Devin, like we said, no slouch, Indy 500 winner this season, and a championship contender in the IndyCar Series. And that is one way to prove your exploits. He already won the F3 championship in 2020. Aiden Jackson was promoted to F2. And then Devin Butler came into F2 for 2021, but Oscar Piastri was on another planet compared to everyone else that season. No one was beating him, and Devin came second. So Devin will get the super license points, and he certainly is a much more refined racer than probably some people would say in the past. But he will definitely have earned that seat on his own merits, even if, let's say, his dad probably has a hand in it, but it's a very small one when you think about it. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's not really confirmed yet, but that is the kind of consensus agreement amongst most people in the paddock and, of course, talking elsewhere. And like we said, I don't think you can go much wrong. There's not really many other options out there as of right now. You know, Daniel Ricciardo could be an option, and so could Mick Schumacher. But if it is to be believed, Mick Schumacher has other plans in the sense of Toto Wolff looking to put him on as reserve driver for 2022. And as we said, well, the Schumacher family ties to the Mercedes brand speak for themselves. It's not just the Formula 1 team, but it's Mercedes as a whole. Michael Schumacher, of course, started. He was, well, he kind of, well, he didn't start, but one of his main kind of exploits, as it were, into the world of sport car racing was with the Mercedes-Benz group. And of course, Michael Schumacher was first in line when Ross Brawn, after the Brawn fairy tale season of 2009, and they changed to Mercedes for 2010, Michael Schumacher was an immediate call-up from Ross Brawn. And Michael Schumacher, having unfinished business with the sport at the time, gave an instant yes to that. Now, unfortunately, it didn't really work out in terms of wins and podiums and such, but for Michael Schumacher, the experience was invaluable, and that has proven to be the case with Mercedes in the last 8 years especially. Unfortunately though, it doesn't look that they're going to make it an absolute 9th Constructors Championship in a row, which is rather unfortunate, but such much has been the absolute powerhouse of the Ferrari power unit as a whole, at least in the Ferrari side of things, and Max Verstappen as well. Red Bull and Ferrari are going to be fighting for the top of the Constructors' Championship, as well as the drivers, with Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Oh, and Charles Leclerc going wide there in the final corner. He's struggling a bit. Aiden Jackson, he's been pretty much radio silent thus far, and probably to avoid distractions. Let's just see how this works. But Aiden Jackson, he's holding firm and still leading this race, and he and Leclerc are racing away, and Mika Hakkinen is doing a stellar job behind them, holding up everyone else. Not really for the car's lack of space or pace, or Mika's lack of pace. It's just that Charles Leclerc and Aiden Jackson are very much on another planet in these conditions at the moment. But Mika Hakkinen is doing a stellar job of keeping very high caliber drivers, two of which have 8 world championships between them, with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. As Charles Leclerc has to look round the inside, and Jackson closes the door on that one. And that was a little look. as Jackson probably is going to get a little bit nervous with having the Ferrari behind him. And, oh, it's a piece of debris. It's a piece of debris that's gone off the track. Have Jackson and Leclerc make contact? We need to see a better angle. And it doesn't look like... Yes! Charles Leclerc has lost his front wing. Now, we don't really know what happened there. But I would assume he's hit Jackson and lost his front wing. Safety car deployed for the debris sprayed across the track. DRS disabled is quite redundant because it's already disabled. But let's have a look at this. Charles takes the curve. And, well, I think Charles, not that he's to blame, but I think he lost control of his car there. And, well, Jackson gives plenty of room on the left, so if there is a blame, I think you have to put it on Charles. He just lost control of the car there.
I think Charles lost his front wing. That wasn't on me, was it? I did feel a hit. The car's okay, Aiden. It doesn't look like it was on you, mate. Looks like Charles just lost control for a moment. In these conditions, it can be done. I don't think there's anyone to blame there. How are you doing, mate? I think I'm alright, but... Oh, man, we're already laps in. Just take it as best you can, Aiden. Deep breaths. We know it's tough, mate. And I know you're not going to give up a win, so I'm not going to ask. But if you do feel anything, just keep us posted, okay? Got it. Copy.
Aiden Jackson already feeling the effects of this race. 9 laps in, and Jackson is already feeling it. Charles Leclerc and both Charles Leclerc and Aiden Jackson both pitted. For Charles Leclerc, he would have had to because it was a front wing change. But Aiden Jackson also pitted, and they've put a new set of intermediates on. And I think that's a new set of intermediates for Sergio Perez. Now, this could be an inspired decision by those 3 drivers in particular. I think Fernando Alonso didn't come in because he stopped on lap 1, so it would have been quite redundant for him to pit a second time. We are expecting the rain possibly to clear maybe at the midpoint of this race. It is getting drier out there. The rain has stopped since the inherent rainfall we had about an hour ago that really was made an hour delay for this race. So, hear this. Nico Hulkenberg is legit leading. No double stacked Audi. Max Verstappen still missing that front wing, mostly due to a game bug in the game. It's rather humorous, really. I mean, only a driver of Max Verstappen's caliber could try something like this and probably pull it off. So, maybe it is legit, and Max is just absolutely having a hero's drive in that car, but he's not replacing it. One thing we'll have to check is maybe the pit stops. We'll know then if it's a bug with the game or Max Verstappen just trying something very audacious without his front wing. I mean, it'd be against the rules if he did that. So I'm going to assume it's just a bug with the game that's not really showing Max's front wing for whatever reason, which is very bizarre. But in any case, Max is 4th, and Charles Leclerc has dropped down to 20th place. But I think he, Jackson, and Perez were the only 3 that pitted under the safety car. So everyone that's ahead of them right now will have to pit, which means Sergio Perez, who started 13th, could end up 3rd and head of Verstappen by the end of this race. But Nico Hulkenberg is leading laps in Formula 1 again, folks. What a sight. That's wonderful to see. Nico Hulkenberg and an inspired call by Audi to bring him back. He was the first in line because he actually contacted them about the possibility of the vacant seat left by Hulkenberg, or Jackson for that matter. Though I don't think Audi would have let go Jackson in month of Sundays, to be honest, because Jackson's form has been absolutely impeccable for most of the season, if not all of it. One retirement in the Belgian Grand Prix that wasn't even his fault, and he's fighting on in this one. He's fighting fatigue very hard, and he's winning. For how much longer? Safety car in this lap. Nico Hulkenberg will lead us on the green flag when we go round to start again. DRS will still be disabled as everyone is still on the intermediate tyres. The track is still damp, although I think it's starting to dry out. But the rainfall was so heavy here an hour ago. That is why we're not seeing any moves to dry tyres, despite the track looking bone dry. I can guarantee you it's not. There are rivers and puddles all over the place, and even with 20 F1 cars around it, they're having to turn constantly, and the rain offline in the corners is what is staying on the racing track, and it could all come back on as well through other means with rain and wind. It's not really windy here, but we've got green flag racing, and Mika Häkkinen will lead us away. Has Carlos Sainz tried to make a dive down the inside? The answer is no. Mika Häkkinen holds his lead, but he will no doubt have to stop again unless these guys decide to try and eke out the intermediate tyres. For Aiden Jackson, it's full on attack mode, if he can even do it. He's already swarming all over the back of Mick Schumacher, his good friend, and teammates last season. And a bit of a squeeze there from Jackson, but I don't think that was really intentional at all. And, well, the Audi is just more powerful than the Haas this season. Jackson makes easy work of it. But a very good friend, and very, very gutted for his friend to be dropped from Haas. He said Mick Schumacher just did not have the luck last season, whereas I did. And I think that's been the case really this season as well. But as we said, the points losing at Zandvoort was probably the final straw for Günther Steiner and maybe a couple higher ups at Haas, such as Gene Haas, of course. Charles Leclerc has already passed Lance Stroll as he now begins his flight back for the field as well. The pit stop for the front wing change shouldn't harm Lance Stroll that much as Jackson makes the move on Yuki Tsunoda up to 15th. And here we go. Here is the Jackson highlight reel of passing cars again. They are generally slower cars at this very moment, as he's passed Sebastian Vettel as well, and Jackson's on it already. He's already up with the McLarens. In fact, I think he's passed Tsunoda already. He already have, we've seen it. But Jackson already up to 14. Now he's behind both McLarens of Ricciardo and Norris, who've been nowhere over the course of the weekend. Mika Häkkinen still leads as they come to the end of lap 11. It would be good for these guys to try and eke out their intermediate tyres for the rest of the race. But of course, we have a dry period approaching, so I think that would probably be the best time to do it, to try and eke out the tyres as much as possible. But they've already done 12 laps in this race for most of these drivers. Perez is still showing as last behind Fernando Alonso. We've got an early yellow flag somewhere, not sure what for yet. And that could be it. It's a Ferrari offline. That's Carlos Sainz. Now that's interesting. Carlos Sainz off the road again. He retired in Zandvoort. And all of a sudden, the Ferrari C-spec power unit is breaking down a lot in the main Ferrari team. And they are losing valuable points. That's Daniel Ricciardo getting a bit out of shape as he was battling side by side with Aiden Jackson. Although there's no contest really, considering Jackson's on much fresher tyres than Ricciardo is. And in fact, Ricciardo has actually retaliated and repassed him. So Jackson probably made a mistake somewhere. Norris has passed Ocon. Schumacher's fighting with Sebastian Vettel. This should be interesting. And not much space given there between Vettel and Schumacher. I wonder if there was contact. That would be unfortunate, as they kind of have their rub into racing thing from Spa, in which Vettel somewhat outbraved himself a little bit. Schumacher was minding his own business in that one. But it was Schumacher that had I think it was Vettel that had to replace his front wing on that one. The Alfa Romeos have really benefited from not stopping. They're even 9th now. Bottas lost out, and I think Joe Guanyuba lost out as well at the start of this race. And Schumacher up to 14th. I wonder if Jackson's giving it a hand a bit. I doubt it. There's not really much you can do in terms of helping another driver through the field, especially with the deficiencies that the Haas has to the rest of the field. Not as bad as last year, don't get us wrong. There were 4 seconds generally on average behind the pole man last season. It's come down over the course of this year, but not really down enough for Mick Schumacher to score any points as Charles Leclerc battles with Yuki Tsunoda. I think there was always contact there. And poor Charles Leclerc, well, he's been in the wars, making contact with Jackson earlier. But the fact that everyone has to pit might spare the kind of costly mistake there. I think in hindsight, if the safety car had not come out, Leclerc probably wouldn't have pitted anyway. I don't think any of these guys would have pitted. We'd be looking at a very different field. But I think the debris was pretty much on a racing line of sorts. I don't think it went to the escape road. Even if it did, it was a huge piece of front wing that was across it. It's the best to neutralise the race so the marshals can clear it away. Charles Leclerc has been stalled a bit by Fernando Alonso, but Jackson continues to go through strength, although he really has stalled a bit. Look at how much he was late breaking down on Ricciardo to try and make up some time. Well, Aiden Jackson might be partially exhausted, but he's certainly pushing hard. You can't deny that. And the fearsome lion that Aiden Jackson makes his way up to 12th. Now, I mean, he doesn't really have to pass anybody here because they'll want to pit ahead of him, but Jackson just doesn't want to wait. He wants to get on with it and get back out of the turbulent air of these cars, because the atmosphere and the humidity and air temperature is already hot in this place, and Jackson does not want to spend any more time than he can behind the turbulent air of other cars. Charles Leclerc is still stuck behind Tsunoda, and Jackson is racing. No surprises there as he runs wide and goes completely off the circuit. That gives that advantage back to Ricciardo, I guess. Lando Norris is battling with Zhou Guanyu. Well, it's a very tight, twisty track, but there's certainly been some overtaking done today. That's proven by Aiden Jackson, Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc has actually passed Yuki Tsunoda to 16th place now. Out of shape goes that's Zhou Guanyu battling with Norris, and Norris makes his way to down, so Norris is flying at this very moment. Here comes Aiden Jackson down the inside of Esteban Ocon, easy as you like. For Aiden Jackson as he makes his way up to 11th. Alfa Romeo will become Sauber here for the 2024 and 5 seasons before the Audi takeover in 2026 will be obviously happening now, with the technical partnership with Motorsport kind of out of the window. Or not out of the window, but off the table for Audi. Not really of anyone's own doing. It was just Audi did not want a conflict of interest between them and Sauber. Them and Sauber, the takeover was always the plan. They didn't want to mess with it. They didn't think the technical partnership with Motorsport would mess with it. They didn't want to take the risk. So it is very fair indeed for what has transpired since. And there were rumblings from other teams that maybe it was a very convenient move in terms of the cost cap, but as we heard earlier, it's been absolutely cleared of any overspending done this season. And that really is proof of just how well Audi have performed this year. Mika Häkkinen is still leading here, folks. We haven't really talked about him a whole bunch, but he's still leading, and these guys really are trying to eke out these tyres for as long as possible, but I don't think they're going to make it to the dry period. Because they've run so long. Intermediate tyres don't really wear as quickly as most of the other compounds. Excuse me, it's Charles Leclerc passes Sebastian Vettel. He gets a move on in the Ferrari. As Aiden Jackson continues taking out, passing almost the entire field to get back where he started. He's now P9 ahead of both Alfa Romeos. Which will be Alfa Romeo for next season for the final year. It's going to be a bit sad to see a top car constructor like Alfa Romeo go, but it was always more of a brand sponsorship deal with their name on the car, and it's not the first time Sauber have done this. Remember that they were part of the BMW project from 2006 onwards, and a certain Robert Kubica managed to get a win in 2008, and what could have been for Robert Kubica. Ironically, he's actually Alfa Romeo's test driver right now. So that is, reserve driver we should say these days. I think that's the more appropriate term for it. But so that's ironic. But it's a question of what if for Robert Kubica. He probably could have been part of this project right now, but leading this race. Very, very unfortunate overall look a bit, but he did manage to get a point at Williams, even if it was just because the majority of cars ahead of them were disqualified from that German Grand Prix of, I believe it was 2019 or 2018, one of those years. We have no German Grand Prix anymore, which is quite sad. Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen are both coming on, and it looks like for a set of intermediate tyres, so no one feels brave enough to put the dry tyres on yet, and that could be interesting. And they will leave in the order they came in out, so meaning Lewis Hamilton will now be back ahead of Verstappen. Aiden Jackson's moved up to fourth with all those pit stops. Charles Leclerc is also getting his moves done today. A spirited fight back from Charles Leclerc, to be fair, much like Aiden Jackson, both of those pitted under the safety car, and they're making their own moves in this race, not waiting for everyone else to pit, as Lance Stroll comes out on the intermediate tyres. So even though the track may look bone dry, no one is actually taking any risks yet. It is still a very long way to go in this Grand Prix, as Aiden Jackson is attesting to so far in this race, as he's starting to really feel the effects of this race early on. Lap 8, and he was already feeling fatigued, as you could hear on the radio. So Mika Hakkinen is doing an absolutely stunning. We haven't really talked about Mika Hakkinen that much. Much like in his McLaren days in 1988 and 1999, particularly when he was leading. Didn't really talk about him that much because we knew he was going to win. Because the Silver Arrows, as they were back then, was really the all-conquering car. Certainly the late 90s, and certainly the late 80s as well. McLaren in 1988, of course, won all but one race in 1988 with Senna and Prost, I believe, that year. And we all know what happened there in terms of absolute cinema and popcorn needed to watch those two battle on the racetrack. That's kind of what everyone's kind of semi-hoping for between the two Alpines next season. And Will Hakkinen and George Russell and one of the McLarens, which I believe is Norris, is coming in, will they take a gamble on the dry tyres? The answer is no. Hakkinen is going to the intermediates then. And that means the order previously has been restored. Aiden Jackson and Charles Leclerc are back where they started. So Charles Leclerc can be counted as very lucky that the safety car kind of bunched up the field right at the beginning. But Charles has also made his own luck by passing some cars. Schumacher's also in for Haas. And we're getting word of a few drivers under investigation for crossing the pit lane exit line. In fact, I think Mick Schumacher's just done it, so he'll be added to the list. Now, I think they got a warning earlier. I think the cars are Sebastian Vettel, Yuki Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, and Nicholas Latifi. Now, they all crossed the pit lane exit line at the first stop, according to the computer. So they got black and white flags for that. So expect to see on the screen pretty soon, if they did it again, 5-second time penalties for those specific drivers. For a second black and white flag infringement, you start getting time penalties, very much like track limits, which there is no danger of today with track limits, because most of the time the track limits don't actually have advantageous effects to them. As you can probably see around this corner right now that Charles is heading into, there's a wall there. So there's no real advantage to be gained out there. And even though Aiden Jackson has been drifting off the track, he's been kind of giving the advantage back, very much like he did in Saudi Arabia. I think it was this year when he was having a few problems with track limits himself. And in comes Fernando Alonso. He had to pit on lap 1, so tyre wear is proving a bit of an issue here for most of these drivers, but they're still trying to wait for the dry period. I'm not even sure if it's going to happen. It still looks quite misty out there. You can definitely tell the rain has fallen earlier with the mist that's on the camera there. Aiden Jackson now leads by 3 seconds, but is really struggling. He's been very radio silent over the course of this race. Audi has been continuously asking about if he's okay to continue Aiden Jackson says copy, and goes on about his business. I mean, he's not going to pull out of this position because he's on for a win right now. And 5-second penalty for Yuki Tsunoda for crossing the pit lane exit line. That's the same for Vettel as well. So, as we said, those investigations have come back, and now all those drivers are now going to have 5-second penalties to serve either at their next pit stop, which could be very, very soon, if the track continues to dry out as it is, or at the end of the race. Now, I think for all those drivers, it's going to be a bit redundant because Vettel is 18th, Tsunoda is 19th, Latifi is 20th, and Schumacher is 21st. In a very ironic way, all those drivers with 5-second penalties are at the back of the field anyway. So, enforce the rules, but it is rather redundant at this very moment because they're at the back of the field anyway. So as we said, the original order has been restored. Aiden Jackson leading from Charles Leclerc by 4 seconds now, momentarily. Sergio Perez, the big winner of the pit stop under the safety car, now is third, but he will have much more worn tyres than everyone behind him now. So the swings back towards those he was behind at the beginning of the race. Hamilton is fourth, followed by Mika Häkkinen. Max Verstappen, crucially, in sixth, but he will lose the championship lead against Charles Leclerc. Aiden Jackson drifts off the track again. Well, I'm not sure how he's doing it, but maybe it's the adrenaline that's pushing Aiden Jackson on here, but you can definitely tell that mistakes are creeping in a little bit for Aiden Jackson, but he's still pushing hard. And, this is really what has sapped Jackson's energy throughout the race. And, well, what a Herculean effort this is by Aiden Jackson right now, because he's been struggling, as we said, all weekend, and, well, physically anyway, but somehow he is fighting through it and leading this race by not a comfortable distance, but certainly a very well-controlled drive by Aiden Jackson. But I think overall the Ferrari still is the faster package, but Jackson's been also valiantly defending for Charles Leclerc for the other stints of this race. So, even if that's the case, Aiden Jackson is not an easy man to pass. But very much like Mika Häkkinen spoke about earlier this week, he really enjoyed the battle he had with Jackson. Wish Audi hadn't really called it off. Because he enjoyed racing him, because, as we said in Monza, you can really trust Aiden Jackson to race you as fairly as possible 99% of the time. Jackson's never really had a battle that was forced to contentious debate, although you probably could argue maybe Zandvoort last year was a bit of a contentious debate, but got a black and white flag for driving standards when he was supposedly blocking Lance Stroll to help Mick Schumacher up a couple of positions, but that was really only the real thing that was talked about. But as we said, the Haas was deceptively slow last year, so you really wouldn't be able to tell one way or the other with the Haas, because it was generally slow anyway. And it's been better this year, but not by a huge amount. And so that Kevin Magnussen's in the points at the moment. Mick Schumacher's in last place, being 21st, because we have one retirement, and that's Carlos Sainz, which is really going to harm Ferrari's hold on the lead of the constructors right now. They won't lose it as of right now, but both Red Bulls are scoring with Perez and Verstappen. Perez, most notably in third place, after an inspired pull under the safety car. Schumacher not able to pass Nicolas Latifi right now. McLaren out of the points. Ricciardo is chasing down Alex Albon. Alex Albon for Williams at a point. Haven't really talked about it. Here he is. And another point for Alex Albon. Of course, he's only scored maybe 4 over the course of the year, but and don't forget, Alex Albon is returning from appendicitis, as he suffered last time at Monza, and there were further complications in that surgery that he had for it. So a testament to him for coming back. One of the toughest tracks on the calendar, physically, and Alex Albon is scoring a point as of now. As Lewis Hamilton comes in, and now we are seeing dry tyres on cars. And Aiden Jackson has been the first of the leaders to react to this, and that means DRS will probably be enabled in a lap or two's time. Still spitting with rain, and it can be really the race director's decision whether to switch on the DRS system. But generally, if all drivers are on dry tyres, then the DRS will automatically be switched on. I think we've still got a couple on the intermediates, but I think the only person there is George Russell, as Mick Schumacher serves his 5-second penalty, as will Nicholas Latifi and Sebastian Vettel, who will all be coming into the pits. And I wonder if Sebastian Vettel... Yeah, he did. I was going to say, I wonder if Sebastian Vettel did actually serve his penalty. We know that Mick Schumacher did, we saw it. So, George Russell is trying to get an extra lap on these intermediate tyres, but the track is literally bone dry at this point. And Charles Leclerc, in all of this, has actually gained on Aiden Jackson. He was 3 seconds behind him, now he's just 1, and just outside the DRS detection zone window. And he'll be catching George Russell at the rate of knots. For the moment, George Russell puts the dry tyres on, DRS will be enabled. And that is not news that Aiden Jackson will want to hear, because we know how powerful the Ferrari is this season. Although Jackson has made his own kind of races with Ferraris in the past. Saudi Arabia, he had a collision with Carlos Sainz, which forced Sainz to pit. It's an inversion on Jackson and Sainz's part, of course. And there we go, DRS enabled, because George Russell has switched onto the dry tyres. So, here we go then. And this will be a good chance for Max Verstappen, because he's right on the rear wing of Mika Häkkinen, as the Audi comes into the pits too. So, DRS enabled then. And for Charles Leclerc, he'll be hoping that maybe more fatigue-induced mistakes will be befalling Jackson sooner rather than later. But even with fatigue, Aiden Jackson has been very much laser focused all weekend long, probably trying to block out the fatigue if anything. But very much a brave soul, Aiden Jackson. Love feel for him. It's certainly a test of his endurance, and he's one of the most supremely fit drivers on this grid, very much emulating his hero Michael Schumacher in that regard. Because for years, Schumacher was the leading man in terms of fitness. Almost no one was anywhere near him for a number of years.
Alright, Aiden, DRS enabled. Oh, that's great news. You're alright, Aiden. We may have to bring you in, we may have to call this, mate. Let's bring you in and let's look after you. No, I'm good. We're just trying not to think about it. I can do this. Alright, Aiden, copy. Just keep us updated.
Jackson is really feeling it. And Charles Leclerc will be notified by his ace engineer, Javi on the radio, but Jackson is struggling. Probably trying to mentally block it out, but when your body cries enough, then it certainly is a worry that Audi are definitely considering. They're trying to call him in, but Jackson is willing to fight on in a race and a weekend where Jackson has been pretty much drained. I wonder if he's carrying an illness of some sort, because Monaco, whereas it's not as tough as Singapore, it certainly was tough, but I don't think Jackson had any problems here. Like we said, I think it's the added humidity in the air. It's very hot here, and now the rain has stopped and the cool air has stopped. Jackson is starting to really feel it now. Oh, he's still hammering on. Still hammering on, but he's struggling a bit to stay within the white racing lines. Well, some will say, well, it's probably a wake-up call for Jackson to work on his fitness, but let's not get this twisted. Jackson was certainly built to drive these cars, but I wouldn't take it from me personally, but on a personal level, but it is hot out here. And, well, you're driving a car for 2 hours, you've got lights shining in your face. Obviously that is, that's obvious. They're not really affected, but they require a lot. It's a lot of voltage, and say there's kind of heat off those. You don't feel it as much, but obviously, like when you turn on a lamp, it does start to get warm after a while. The drivers won't really feel that as much, and such is the humidity around here that well, you wouldn't notice anyway. You might need that to be powered on, so it really is sapping Aiden Jackson physically, but just the warrior mentality that Jackson has. He's pushing on, and he's still leading this race. In fact, he's starting to pull away from Charles Leclerc now, so you have to say that Jackson is laser focused on just the road ahead, trying not to think about anything else, just the road ahead of him, and it's working, because he's starting to pull away from Charles again. Well, you would have thought Ferrari would have the beating of Audi around here, but not so, and that's the case with Red Bull as well, because Hackett is doing very well to keep ahead of Verstappen. Alex Albon, well, he's already still recovering from his surgery, and he's driving around here, so both Aiden Jackson and Alex Albon really deserve honorable mentions today. Under the circumstances, they are really being the warriors that they are. Kevin Magnussen for that vital point for Williams. They are getting better. It's just very slow. It's a trust the process moment at Williams, and it's working. The patience is paying off, and they are getting better and better as the years go on now. And I think very soon we will see them back towards the front. And Formula 1 needs McLaren and Williams back at the front now that we've got a new kind of front contender with Red Bull. And of course Ferrari and Mercedes. You're throwing McLaren and Williams back into the mix, and my goodness, we are going to have some battles for the ages in a few years' time. And don't forget the new rules in 2026 as well. That should really condense the field up a bit. We are in for some battles, and we got the famous Audi name as well. We could even have Cadillac and maybe even APX as well. And, well, Jackson has lost 8 tenths to Leclerc over the last couple of laps. Leclerc is starting to reel him in again. Jackson, one of the youngest drivers on the grid as well. So we have to factor that in. Now, normally you'd think that would make you fitter, but I don't think it's not a question of fitness for Jackson. He's just been exhausted, but somehow he's soldiering on here. But you feel it, even with your peak fitness conditions. You feel the heat and humidity around here. And even in normal circumstances, you still feel it. You lose so much of your body weight. Depending on the circumstances, you can lose even more than probably what's considered normal. But like I said, only Michael Schumacher really used to get out of the car feeling as fresh as anything, like he'd just gone for a stroll. Now, people probably started to catch up with Michael physically over the years, and in 2010 through 12, he certainly wasn't feeling it, but some would argue he lost a step. I personally don't think so. He did have a couple of questionable, say, incidents that probably, well, not questionable, but incidents that were very unlike him, shall we say. With particularly Bruno Senna and Jean-Eric Vergne. Jean-Eric Vergne was here in 2012. Bruno Senna was in Spain 2012. But at the same time, Michael could have won the Canadian Grand Prix of 2011. He scored pole in Monaco 2012, even though he didn't win it, or didn't start there because of a penalty with that crash with Senna. And you could have argued that if he'd started there, he probably would have won Monaco 2012 as well. In fact, Mercedes, they stopped development partway through the season and signed Lewis Hamilton. I feel that if Mercedes had gone on and been genuine contenders for the majority of the year, Michael probably could have stayed. Now, whether he would have stayed in 2014 would be a question mark. He would be in his mid-40s by then. But it's not uncommon. Some drivers can race into their 40s and 50s. I think Angel was one of them, I believe. So it can be done. If you look after yourself well, Michael Schumacher was someone who definitely looked after himself well. Of course, however, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Michael probably wouldn't have had his skiing accident in 2013 had he been still an active competitor. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. But that fitness and that kind of way of work for Michael probably this was been a big factor in his recovery. He's not really heard much of since a decade next year. And I don't think we're going to hear anything more unless something really changes. God forbid. But Alex Albon still in 10th, still ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Very stellar job. Well, Valtteri Bottas has fallen off a cliff in this race. He started 9th or 10th. He's now down in 16th. What has happened to particularly Haas and Alfa Romeo this year? We have the same C-spec Ferrari power unit as the main works team. That's the way Ferrari works. Everyone gets the same tools. Sometimes you could maybe say Mercedes don't give the same power unit to say McLaren as the works team, even though that's been proven not to be the case. Everyone's pretty much on equal footing this year. Alpine are only supplying Renault supplying Alpine by themselves, of course.
Okay, mate, that is the fastest lap. This has been an absolutely monumental effort from you here, mate. Just a few more laps to go. We're almost home. Copy.
Now is Aiden Jackson pulling this out of the bag? I will never know. Fastest lap of 1:44 and 3 seconds clear of Leclerc. Somehow, Aiden Jackson is powering through. What an effort. And now, just a few laps from the end, Jackson looks to take this win definitely on his own merit. Every passing race, Jackson adds more to his very impressive looking resume right now. And how is this kid not even in one of these top 3 teams at the moment? Really, because there's no room. You know, at Red Bull, they're obviously going to stick with Verstappen and Perez for as long as they can. Ferrari, no reason to kind of change their driver lineup. Leclerc is a perennial title challenger this season, and Carlos Sainz has just been very unlucky over the last few races in terms of DNFs. And at Mercedes, well, that's Jackson's home. It's where he started. But Hamilton and George Russell, I'm going to swap them over if you can help it. It'll really be 2024 where we'll get more of a clearer picture of what is going to be happening at Mercedes. That's the last year of Hamilton's current contract. I don't think Russell's for that matter. So that'll be a telling story, but it really depends how much far behind Mercedes will fall in the terms of this year, because Hamilton has not run a race yet. George Russell's won 2. He won the sprint in Austria and the Belgian Grand Prix. But Hamilton, you feel, is getting closer and closer to keeping that streak going. He's 4th right now, and has done a good job. He's actually catching Perez a little bit. But he's just outside that vital DRS zone. Still, Max Verstappen can't find a way past Mika Häkkinen. Even with DRS, don't discount the Audi's power unit either. They've certainly got a good one in the back of that car from the Mercedes, of course. And it's probably going to be the same Mercedes engine that Connosport carries over for next season. That seems the most logical kind of engine power deal for them to take. It's one of their two last kind of pieces of the Connosport puzzle in terms of the second driver, because then Butler is not really all but confirmed yet. And the power unit is still not being confirmed either, but I think it'll be Mercedes, and they'll probably they'll tell Connosport to keep Aiden Jackson on as long as you can, because right now they are putting Jackson in scenarios that don't pressure him so much. Not expected to win titles. I don't think he was expected to win races this year either. But right now he's just 2 laps away from taking a race that you would have thought Jackson wouldn't even be able to finish. I think if he'd not been fighting for the race, we'd probably race win. We'd probably be looking at a very different scenario when it comes to Aiden Jackson. He probably would have still gone on to win, finish the race anyway, such as his valiant effort. So 2 laps to go. Audi look like getting massive points haul today. Jackson with 25. In fact, he'll get 26 because he has the fastest lap right now. Mika Häkkinen is on for, I think, 10 at this point. Because he is still valiantly holding off Max Verstappen. It's just a shame that he can't get anywhere near George Russell. He's 10 seconds behind him, but he'll take it. Alex Albon looks to get a great point for Williams here. He's got Kevin Anderson buried down on him, but he's holding him off very well. Norris getting 4 points from McLaren. Pierre Gasly getting a couple of points for AlphaTauri as well. So certainly some big talking points going into next race. It's going to be another return circuit to Japan. One of Aiden Jackson's personal favourites, even though he's never driven it. But that's a race that Jackson's really looking forward to. I don't think he'll ever want to do this one again, quite frankly, because he has been spent for most of his weekend, physically anyway. Right now, it's been a valiant, champion-worthy drive. Certainly a race when he won. A champion of hearts drive for Aiden Jackson today. And he's just 1 lap away now, crossing that line. The advisor camera, his eyes darting everywhere, probably just to keep himself kind of in the zone, as it were, not awake. He wouldn't fall asleep on the wheels. Not only that, these will keep you awake. I don't think Jackson is any danger of that. He definitely is rather spent physically. But right now, he's on for an absolutely valiant win. And the 5th career win for Aiden Jackson. He continues to get better and better with every race he wins. He's won a race with problems. He's won a race with car dominance. He did that at Zandvoort, even if George Russell was closing in on him. I think he's yet to have a win with a lead better than 3 seconds. Because it happened, that was Azerbaijan as well, where he won with about 2 seconds to Leclerc. And that was after Perez pitted for a front wing change after damaging it, misjudging the first corner. Well, Aiden Jackson will take the Singapore Grand Prix. An absolutely stunning win. And another win for Audi this season. And if Connosport can build on this. Well, they'll have their own equipment, but something you feel they're going to have to take notes. I think one vital thing is keeping on of Aiden Jackson, because he's been heroic tonight.
Mate, that's the Singapore Grand Prix. I honestly don't know how you did it, mate. You're an absolute hero, you know that? Guys, can we never do this again? Thanks, boys. I'm out.
Oh my goodness. He's close to tears. He's so exhausted. Aiden Jackson, he never wants to do this again. But he's going to have to, because we'll be back next season. I have no doubt that he'll work on it. But my goodness, what an effort from Aiden Jackson tonight. Led from start to finish. Absolutely physically spent. And he pulled through. And he took the checkered flag. And, well, an absolutely heroic and fantastic effort for him tonight. Ahead of Charles Leclerc, and Sergio Perez from 13th on the grid finishes 3rd as his pit stop under the safety car was an absolutely inspired decision. Both Mercedes also get double points, so that might mitigate Audi's chasing aspirations a little bit. Alex Albon holds on to 10th, and he deserves an honourable mention after coming back from appendicitis and having further complications with the surgery around that time. He comes back to the toughest race of the season and finishes 10th. Look at that. Aiden Jackson is now 3rd, and maybe, just maybe, looking at that, he really is on the outside looking in. I don't think he's going to take it, but Aiden Jackson all of a sudden is kind of there, isn't he? And now they're only about 30 points behind the Mercedes. Red Bull just 54, but Ferrari get the Red Bull get the bigger points, but not by much. It probably broke even. But Audi and Aiden Jackson in particular now are in for much more than they bargained for. The man is spent, but much as Aiden Jackson's determination, this is the win he thoroughly deserves. We'll see you for the returning Japanese Grand Prix, one of Jackson's favourites, when Formula 1 returns. What a return to the Singapore Grand Prix. What a race from Aiden Jackson.